I've been working on cars for over 20 years, and if I had to start over tomorrow with my tools, these are the 5 categories I would make sure I had covered. So the first thing we're going to start with is actually item 0, some PPE. Not to sound like that guy, but you only have one set of eyes, one set of ears, and your skin isn't nearly as tough as you think it is. So it's best that we do what we can to take care of it. For me, the most important thing is a pair of safety glasses. I have really become a fan of these Nemesis by CleanGuard. I think that's what it is. Yes, CleanGuard with a K. They're awesome, but even the little $1 cheapies that you can get, better than nothing. So there you go. EarPro for me is second. You can just get earplugs, but I like muffs. And what I really like are these powered, like shooting style muffs. They cut out a lot of sound, and if you're working with somebody, they're great because they're pass-through. They have little microphones in them that will pick up what's going on around you. So if you're working with somebody else, you can hear them, and that's safer as well. You don't have to take them on and off all the time. Just to hear somebody you're talking to. And then gloves, be it leather gloves or mechanics gloves or rubber gloves, they all kind of serve different purposes. If you're only going to have one, though, I'd say get you some mechanics gloves. There's a lot of dexterity in them, and they do a pretty decent job of keeping like light chemicals and grease off your hands. And then rubber gloves are good for changing oil or if you're dealing with a lot of chemicals. The older I get, the more sensitive I am to bad chemicals, and I almost always wear rubber gloves, even if they're underneath leather gloves or mechanics gloves, just to help keep that off my hands. The next thing on the list, or the first thing on the list, depending on how you're counting, is a set of wrenches and sockets. You don't have to spend a lot of money on them. This is the Pittsburgh, I think it's a 225 piece kit. And I would say just stick with a recognizable name. Craftsman, Milwaukee, DeWalt, Gear Wrench, Pittsburgh, Quinn, Icon, whatever. Just as long as it's a reputable brand that has a decent enough warranty that you can get service when you need it. So what's nice about these kits is they have 1/4, 3/8, and 1/2-inch drive ratchets, whole bunch of sockets. This kit I don't think skips anything. Like I don't think it skips a size. Has the Swedish nut lathe, which is handy, and then kind of crappy but decent enough dikes and needle nose, and then you're pretty much set on screwdriver stuff. They have a bunch of little bits and stuff. They kind of inflate the numbers with these things, but they are actually handy to have. And if you're just starting out, this is like the perfect kit. And another nice thing with a kit like this is it's a really good grab and go type of thing. I will toss this in a car if I'm going more than like an hour in one direction. Yes, it's a cheap set, but if I lost something on the side of the road, I wouldn't be too broken up about it. Even if you upgrade in tools, a set like this is always great to have. I love grabbing this if I got to go work on a tractor in the field somewhere, or if I got to go help a friend. It's just something nice to have. The next thing for me would be embracing my inner Jeremy Clarkson hammers. Be it a big sledge, a ball peen, a maul, I think is what you would call that, or a brass hammer. Nothing beats a good hammer. If I only had to get one, if I could only get one, I would get a brass hammer. They don't mar things up. They got a decent amount of weight to them. You give something a good whack. If I got to smack a tool to get something done, I will gravitate towards the brass hammer. It doesn't damage things like, say, maybe a ball peen hammer would. A hammer like this, pretty good. What is that, about 4 pounds? It's a nice in-between size. Ball peens are great. You can get very precise with your hit. But oddly enough, this is probably the last one I would get. You probably already have a claw hammer or construction hammer. And as long as they're smooth on the face here, you can pretty much do anything that you would do with a ball peen hammer with that. And in a world where bigger is always better, the sledgehammer. I call this one John Henry because it is a 20-pound hammer, just like John Henry's, except for this one's only on a 3-foot handle. I have never had a brake drum not come off while using this one. Bigger isn't always better, I guess, but when it comes to sledges, I think bigger is better. Next is jacks and jack stands. You really can't have one without the other. It's pretty self-explanatory. You need to get the car up off the ground sometimes, in which case you need a good jack. Normally I am a bigger is better kind of guy. In this case, that isn't always necessarily true. If you're working on like small Japanese cars, a jack designed for a Super Duty or a jack stand designed for a 1-ton truck might not necessarily work for you. These cups are actually in different sizes depending on the weight capacity of the jack stand. So keep that in mind. If you're working on a real little car, smaller stands are probably better. But if you can get away with running a bigger stand, by all means. The one thing I like a lot about these bigger stands is they have a bigger footprint to them. And if your floor is level, they're way more stable, right? So if you're working on stuff that's super heavy, a bottle jack is key. These are awesome, and they have the added benefit of being really cheap. This is a 20-tonner. I don't think it was 50 bucks. They're very inexpensive. So if you're working on like heavy trucks, tractors, things of that nature, bottle jack is hard to beat. Now I'm going to lump these two things together. Depending on the era of vehicle you're working on, they're equally as important. And that would be the DVOM or voltmeter and a scanner of some variety. Now you don't have to go nuts on a scanner. This is a Icon T8. They're about $1,000 these days. You don't have to spend that much for one. But you're probably looking at spending at least $150. What you're looking for is something that can do trouble codes and ABS systems and access the various modules in your car. Not all of them do it, so you need to look into that. And a phrase you're going to look for is either bidirectional or capable of doing self-tests on the car. A lot of newer cars have tests built into them that you can access with a proper scanner. The more you spend, the more you get. So look into the scanner you're looking at, look at the vehicle you're working on, and kind of compare the two and see if what you're looking at will work. A voltmeter is key. You need to know what's going on voltage-wise in your car. Whether or not your alternator is charging, you can watch this as you're cranking the car over to see how low your voltage is going. You can do a lot of things with these. You can make sure your switches are working. A decent voltmeter is invaluable when it comes to working on cars, old or new. But if you're working on a new car, they're equally as important. And then finally, the most basic and simple of all, oil change stuff. Drain pan, funnel, and a wrench. I'm not going to throw that down. Oil change stuff, it's as simple as that. That's what you need. Pan, funnel, wrench. Yeah, not much more to say than that. This was by no means a comprehensive list, but just a good starting off point if you were beginning to work on your own cars and you were wondering, what should I get first? This is where I would start. Now, as you're working on things, you'll discover, I need a C-clamp. I need a pair of vice grips. But as you discover you need things, you take that opportunity to grow. Budget for it. Always have a few $100 setting aside in case you discover that you need something else to get the job done. And everything I showed you, I looked it up on Harbor Freight, and you could pretty much cover the bases for a fair bit under $1,000 for like, I believe it was $850 or so. You can get outfitted pretty well and have everything you need to get started. And those would be tools that you could quite literally have for the rest of your life. If you are going with budget stuff, I will say the weak link in all, I don't care who makes it, but pretty much the weak link in all of those kits of sockets and ratchets is the ratchet itself. Stepping up the ratchet game will make your experience a lot better. And of course, the introduction of power tools, impact guns, power ratchets, that sort of thing, doesn't really fix your car, but helps you along the journey. If you got a pipe, a cheater bar, you can get a lot of stuff done even without impact. I wouldn't worry about toolboxes, at least when you're starting out. That's kind of a distraction. That being said, I love a good toolbox. And of course, manuals and stuff like that. But you really don't know what you need in all that kind of stuff until it comes up. Service manuals and books and stuff like that are nice. But in reality today, while you're working on your car, you just whip out the phone and you Google it. Pretty much any answer you need is online and easy to find. Well, I think that wraps it up, guys. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, give it a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Until next time, be safe, and I'll see you later.